You know, I used to joke about how I didn't really need the T-2. It was more of a want than a need because the R2-Y2 is so fucking brokenly overpowered that you don't really need a supersonic jet. And I still stand by that to a degree because I've now killed a Phantom in it and an F-100, multiple F-100s in fact, and I also once got a MiG-19. The guns on that thing just kind of gel with me. But anyway, hey folks, welcome back to WarThunder. T2 first impressions video today, and although it's not live comms, there's quite a bit of footage to go over, and you might have noticed this, but I don't really script stuff. So I've watched all the footage through, and I'm just going to, commentate over whatever's happening at the time, run over whatever's going on, give you my thoughts, feedback, impressions, and hopefully you'll get a picture of what I was thinking at the time of it all happening as it was actually happening. So that match with the R2-Y2 and the Phantom kill, I actually unlocked the T2 off the back of that. And so this is my first match. It was a struggle. Japan doesn't have... Let me start again. So in EC, there's like default servers that are always there that are sort of like run by Gaijin, if you like. And then there's like player rooms. There are no default Gaijin servers with top tier Japan in them. Like the only time you'll ever get to play top tier Japan is if a player starts the lobby going, and they were non-active at all. So what I ended up doing is joining a player one that had Japan against basically everyone, and then Dave, who you'll know from some of my other videos, the MiG-21 and the Javelin video that I put up recently, he joined the opposite team to get the numbers up. And because no one plays Japan really, despite this playing being fucking epic, but we'll get into that as we go on, I ended up fighting everyone on my own. Like there was only me on my team and AI, and that was it. And there was like 6 of them on the enemy team. So yeah, the first match, although it wasn't a complete failure, and I did learn some things, I ended up dying and leaving it because I didn't want to wait for the spawn timer. So this is the first PvP engagement that I've had, and I say PvP, but it actually turned out to be an AI. But as you can see, it was stalling out to climb up to me, and I already have my speed well sufficient enough to just loop over again. So I'm just going to play vertical maneuvers with it until it bleeds its speed off, and I end up in a position where I can take a shot on it. And that ends up taking about 3 loops. Which, you know, if you're not being engaged by more than one person, then you've got well enough time to do this, and you're always going to have a huge speed advantage on anything like I think this is an F30 Sabre, maybe an F40, but either way, yeah. So this was, like I said, the very first engagement. This was well before I realised that this thing actually gets IFF, like the Javelin, Identify Friend or Foe. So if you spot something on the radar, you immediately know whether what you're looking at is good or bad, and you can either turn off the engagement and ignore it, or you can kill it outright on your first pass, because this thing also gets a lead compute radar gun sight after the 3rd loop, like I said. I actually have AIM-9Bs right now, I don't have the Es. I tend to gold stuff just to make it competitive, because I didn't want to go in and just suck in it, you know, because it would be shit for footage and I wouldn't enjoy it, and I don't want a bad experience tainting what could be a good plane. And I'm fortunate enough to have the disposable income to do that. If these videos start picking up, then I might actually be able to join the partnership program. I think you need 500 views on average per video, and I'm not quite at that yet, but we're definitely getting there. But yeah, that was a bit of a tangent. So on the AIM-9Bs, I also grinded, bought, sorry, the bombs, the first lot bombs. So I can carry 7 500-pounders, I think. And for the sake of grinding some mods, I've been taking the bombs out, dumping them on a runway, and then going into fire mode. So, drop the bombs already. before we engaged that Sabre. We found that second Sabre, which I was just engaging, and then this MiG-19, which I'm pretty certain is being piloted by Dave, popped in, and obviously I'm going to ignore an AI Sabre over a MiG. This might actually be AI as well, to be honest, because I know that Dave was in a MiG-21 for an engagement that we'll get into after this one. But this is before I even realised that it had a radar gun sight at all. I'm so used now that everything I've tried since this patch dropped has had its anything that did have a radar gun sight previously had it removed and got given a gyro sight instead. And I can see that this has a gyro sight, so I was like, well, I'm not even going to bother locking them up because, you know. But anyway, we were interrupted by an F-100, so I bailed on the engagement. Radar picked up this guy, and I locked it, and I was like, oh shit. This was when I realised that it had a radar gun sight. At this point, I didn't notice that the gyro pepper, the bit that moves, actually works. You can aim with it, and you'll hit shit, just like before the patch changed everything. At this point, I was still thinking that I had to aim at the green orb at the end of the line, which obviously my gun sight pipper is very precise, and that orb is like a huge fucking round ball. So current impressions at the time were that it wasn't really that much more useful than not having one, or than just relying on the gyro. But having faffed about and practiced, it's actually insanely good. So even with a damaged wing, I'm able to avoid and keep with, to some extent, this MiG. I think it's a MiG-21. I was really surprised by how well the T-2 handles. I thought it would wobble like fuck in a similar way to the F-100 and the Phantom without the stability mode on, but it's actually really stable in a way that I feel like should be impossible, because looking at how long and thin it is and how tiny the wings are, I thought this would be great for straight line speed, maybe vertical manoeuvres, and not much else. But it rolls really nicely, it's quite precise, it pulls well, and with flaps, as you'll see in a little bit, you can turn fight with all sorts of shit really quite well. So I got unlucky here, ran out of ammo, only got one missile left, and obviously missiles aren't going to be particularly brilliant in a dogfight scenario, but I loosed it off because I didn't want to leave the engagement without trying. So for now I'm just going to keep evading as much as I can, fire the missile off when I can, and then turn and run. And given the fact that I'm the only person on this entire team that isn't AI, as a courtesy I put in chat that I was out of ammo, in the hope that they'd let me go back and land, and they don't. The F-100 shoots me down like a penis, which, I mean, you know, it's fair enough because it is a multiplayer lobby and I am an enemy, so, you know, maybe he didn't read the message, but given the circumstances and given the fact that if I leave, they're going to have a really shit time with no one real to fight against. So, you know, they could at least have given me the courtesy of rearming. But yeah, so he kills me. I'm not going to sit around for the spawn time to wait, and you know, it's like 25 minutes. So on the upside, since the BR max has now been upped to 10.3, 10 hours now don't have to wait for half an hour. It's been knocked down, so all the spawn timers have been like knocked down a peg in BR, which is quite nice. But anyway, I digress again. I'm good at digression. So we join a new match. I get the R2Y2 up, get the points I need, spawn in the T2. I think we still have. Oh, I took rockets this game, yeah. Plan was to hit some pillboxes because they're really great for grinding RP, and also getting spawn points and whatever else, helping team win, etc. So despite having rockets on, I kept just finding stuff on the radar, and like I said, it has IFF, so I knew that that guy was enemy without having to close in to visual ID. I knew it was a bomber of some sort. I didn't know anything else, but the radar said it's bad. Second I was in missile range, lock it up, fire it, don't have to worry about getting a team kill. It's like easy mode, and it's so satisfying. But I know for a fact that the second I go back to a plane that doesn't have IFF, it's going to be awful, because I'll have to get really close, I'll have to double check, I'll have to cross-reference with the map and the objectives and all this other shit, the kill feed. It's quite a stress-free aircraft to fly. It's really nice in pretty much every way. The only complaint that I have is that the rearward visibility is pretty limited, and the suspension I think is bugged. But I'll try and remember to talk about that when we get to the landing, because I've included at least one in this video. So, Phantom we found. I've been telling it for a while. I know that the Phantom is enemy because I can visually ID that that's what it is, and I know that the Americans are the bad guys. So, right, I didn't really come into that very much. But, easy kill. I don't know if you actually ever knew I was there. So, this is something that I visually acquired. I used the radar to ID it as enemy, but I was going that fast, I thought I'd give the gun sight a go. Still haven't caught on yet that I can use the gyro as the point of aim, so I'm still aiming at the big orb thing. But when you get this close, it doesn't really matter, especially when they're flying in a straight line. So you might have noticed, you might not, that I keep changing the how do we put this? The radar has like multiple modes for the scan width, if you like, and I keep putting it on the narrow scan. Whenever I see a speck in the distance, flicking it to the narrow version, it basically ups the scan speed, but for a narrower field of view. And if you're pointing right at the thing that you can see, then the field of view is an irrelevance. Put it on the narrow scan just lets you pick it up on the radar quicker and hold it on the scope. There's less chance of it being lost. And that means that when you get close enough to lock in with the guns, you can lock them up easier and maintain it better. I'm still aiming at the big blob. I haven't caught on yet. Managed to snip his elevators off, so abandon him and just go let him crash. And then it's straight back into a combat air patrol pattern, just flying around looking for specs, put the radar on the wide scan, and just continue on until we locate another target. So at this point I've got these rockets on, and I thought, you know what, I might as well go hit the runway since I'm heading that way anyway. So find it on the map, head over there, line up, and oh fuck, 700 meters default range. Why? Just fucking why? They're not even air-to-air rockets. They're meant for killing. They're heat rockets. They don't have. I don't think they have any splash at all. I don't know why they even have an option for airburst. And why would it be the default when you have 70 fucking 6 of them? It just pissed me off enough that I had to include it in the video. But yes, so as per very standard procedure in the T-2 now, fly around, use the radar to find a target, or even just visually acquire it. Once you have, you can ID it with the radar. You just need to get into a position where the radar can pick it up. Radar works a lot better looking upwards, so if you stay really low to the deck and the target is above you, that's the best way to get it on the scope. So the target that I did have just crashed, and I picked something else up, so I'm going to turn after that. Radar shows that it's a teammate, and I know that I don't need to follow. It's beautiful not having to waste time, because a lot of instances in Sim, you'll see a spec and you have to chase it down, and it might take you like 2-3 minutes to get close enough for you to be able to even tell what it is. And then there are some aircraft that are on both teams, like Canberras and B-57s. They can fight against each other, and they can be difficult to ID from a distance. Sometimes you can mistake an Arado for an IL-28. All these things, and with the radar having IFF, you just know in a split second whether you can continue on and kill it or just leave it alone. And it's amazing for that. I can't remember what this is. I know there's an F100 at some point, which is basically the eureka moment where I think to myself, holy shit, the gyro actually functions as a lead indicator and it works perfectly. Judging by the closure rate, I think this might be it. So I'm lining up on the blob ahead, and I start to notice that, hang on a minute, the gyro is actually like lining up pretty well. And then the penny dropped, and I was like, wait a fucking minute. So I went into a test flight after that match ended, just to, you know, double check, and I'm just sort of speculatively shooting here to see if the shots get close, and they are doing. And then we eventually hit and take the wing off using the gyro. So once this happens, it's like, fuck me, holy shit, all gloves are off. Oh, here we go. The suspension thing. I think I included another landing. This was a touch and go attempt because it's quite difficult to get the angle right to not tail strike, and I sucked at it. And having the suspension not work very well, like I bounced there, even though in any other jet that would have been a buttery smooth landing. So I might go on the forums and see if there's a bug report in for the suspension not working, because another thing that's quite telling is if you spool the engines and hold the brakes on in basically any other jet in the game, the nose wheel dips as you pile the thrust on, because obviously the plane's pushing forwards and the plane's, you know, it can't go anywhere. So it pivots downwards on the nose wheel. And the T2 doesn't do that. There's literally no nose wheel dip whatsoever. So the nose wheel suspension doesn't work, and it doesn't on the back either, because otherwise you wouldn't bounce on takeoff. So here we're on a new game. We're in Vietnam again, and as before, I took the bombs out first, hit the runways, because best way of making RP, grinding out the mods, etc., is to just bomb shit, because, you know, it's no effort. You get quite a hefty reward for it, especially with the current double RP bug / feature that's been going on for, like, I don't even know how long, about a year or something. But once the bombs are away, we're into cap mode, and we immediately spot this thing, which I believe is an F-100. First shot is a missile. It was one of those like Hail Marys where I'm not expecting it to really do anything, but if it does, it'd be pretty epic. No dice on that front, so we close in, and this ends up being quite a pretty good dogfight test. I didn't think that the T2 would be as good as it is, but as you see when we get into it, it can actually hold its own really well. It was surprising enough how well it did against the MiG-19 and the MiG-21 earlier, but as you'll see in this instance, it's actually very good at handling the F-100 in a one-on-one. I would probably want to be in the T2 if I ever go into this situation again. What I do know is that the T2 almost definitely accelerates better than the F-100, but the F-100 turns pretty well, especially in like the, I don't know how to really word it or if there's a word for it, but I'll call it an instantaneous turn. The F-100, because of that wobble that it has, it can flick its nose quite a significant amount, and it can instantly turn like 90 degrees in a split second or so, but then it really struggles to maintain it. So energy conservation is not the F-100's forte, but the T2 might be much better at it, and the fact that it has better acceleration should aid in that as well. But that's what we're testing this for, I guess. So he tries to run away. Never going to work. T2 accelerates better, as we've said, has a higher top speed. I actually had to run and do something there. I can't believe he didn't turn away, and I think I had to pass my mum some scissors or something. But he was still in my view when I came back. He's turning just too much for me to get a missile shot off. I wish they'd change the radar UI so that this box thing doesn't, you know, it looks horrible. But here I'm thinking this would be a great proof of concept for me testing the gun sight in a natural match now that I know that the gyro pipper works. But I think he hears me coming. So I'm going to cut throttle. I don't want to black out. This crew isn't the best. We'll lag pursuit a bit, but then he reverses his turn. No joy with the guns. The velocity on the Vulcan is really throwing me for a loop. I don't know. It looks fast, but I don't know if I'm leading too much or not enough. And the fact that there's so many rounds in the air is quite distracting. I think I'd do better if there was a stealth belt for it, honestly. I also really hate the fact that it has a spool time. I think that's something that Guardian really need to fix, because I'm like 99,000,000% sure that in real life they wouldn't make a pilot have to spool the gun first. I'm pretty sure the entire point of it being electronically driven in the plane is that the second they flick the gun switch on and, you know, master arm or whatever, it's rotating so that it will shoot instantly. Can't quite get the angle right for this. Speed's getting too low and I'm just a little bit too wobbly. It does have a bit of pitch wobble, but it's nowhere near as bad as the F100 or the Phantom. And it's more than made up for by the IFF and the fact that it can carry AIM-9Es on such a nimble platform, and obviously the gun size as well. Here I'm going up. I don't want to overshoot. This lets me just drop down on him. He reverses his turn for some reason, which he shouldn't have done. And there's an ME-262 around, which actually ends up getting this kill, but I'm not mad about that at all, because I wasn't struggling to stay behind him, but I think if I was going to ever get this kill, it would have taken me a while, just because the speeds and the turn and the fact that I'm not very well versed in this thing yet. I could have stuck to him like glue, but without using the gun sight, I'd have really struggled to get the shots off. And at this low altitude, the radar doesn't lock very well, especially when he's mostly below me. And I want him to be mostly below me because I have an energy advantage as long as I'm higher up, because I can dive on him to get what little difference between us balanced on my side. If this were a 9E, that would have absolutely been a kill. I got unlucky that it sort of dipped first. Maybe if I'd pulled the nose up. I know that the wings, because of the way that they're on the plane, the AIM-9s are sort of pointing down a little bit, I think. That should have been a kill, but I don't know the gun. Going vertical again, he reverses his turn so we can just loop down on him. This thing just, the handling is beautiful at this kind of speed, and I just don't feel like it should be. And with combat flaps out and full afterburner on, we're able to actually gain speed in the turn, which is really nice. And there he goes, the 262 manages to finish him off. So this was the point where this was probably the most satisfying kill I got the whole session. There's a little V-shaped valley through the mountains in front of me, and I visually spotted a target through it. And the radar, despite all of this clutter around me, manages to pick him out at the last second before he goes around the corner. And right there I'm just like, that's an enemy. Even though I've got 7 500-pounders on, I have the advantage here because he doesn't know that I'm here. It doesn't matter that I have this weight to deal with, because I'm not going to need to maneuver with him. I'm not going to have to have a dogfight. He's going to have no chance to react. The second I visually acquire him again, I spool the heaters up, one away, and it's a guaranteed kill, because the radar is just brokenly overpowered. And AIM-9B has got the job done just fine for that kind of engagement. So we've still got the bombs on. I'm actually right by the runway, and then this target pops, It's not on the objectives yet, but I'm thinking it's a surveillance plane, and it actually pops right there, so I actually find it and see it on the radar before it even exists as an objective. I'm not sure what would have happened if I'd shot it down before it came up, but this is the first time I get to use the gun sight. So I'm aiming with the gyro pipper this time, and look at that. I was a little bit off, but I think the fact that I was pulling changed the trajectory enough for it to just work. Either that or the target's big enough for it to not matter. But if you can get a permanent bead on target like that, and you hit that many shots in a row, then the Vulcan is actually just an insanely good gun. It's just very difficult to keep a bead on target that well if you don't have a radar gun sight. Or it is for me anyway, because I just fucking suck with it. So here we find an A2D on the radar. I can't get the gun sight to work very well because it's low altitude, but it works for long enough for me to get a feel of where I need to aim, so that when it goes off, I'm able to just sort of wing it. And I get a hit there, and I finish him off with a second burst. Turning around, and we'll immediately pick up another radar contact, instantly know that it's a bad guy, and we just keep repeating the same procedure. It's a very therapeutic aircraft to fly because it's sort of pretty brain dead, but it's not brain dead in a way that makes it unfulfilling or boring to fly. It's incredibly satisfying, even though it seems very hand-holdy, but somehow it just sort of works. And yeah, it's kind of unfair to the enemy team because like 9 times out of 10 they won't get a chance to react because you should be able to kill them on the first pass. But here I've visually acquired the target after finding it on radar. I know that it's an enemy, I can see that it's a B-57. I'm going to lag my turn so that I'm going to come up behind him and one away at some point. There we go. At this kind of range, he won't even be able to hear my aircraft yet. It's just disgusting, but it's so satisfying. And then this F3D just rolls in. Get some rope dopage going on, pull up. He's not going to be able to follow me through this, so his best bet is to just turn, dive. If you're ever dealing with a plane that's this much better than what you're in, then your best bet is to get very, very low and maintain visual with it and turn inside it, because it will have to dive on you almost directly downwards if you keep turning inside their dive, and they'll have to make the decision whether to try and get guns on with the very, very limited window to hit you, or launder into the ground. And if you do it enough times, people tend to get greedy. The more you do it, the more energy they'll waste, because they won't want to keep setting the whole thing up over and over and over again, because each time it takes longer and they'll have to maintain visual on you the whole time. In sim that's quite hard to do. It's very taxing mentally, especially on this map, but the lighting on Vietnam right now, because it's quite dark, makes it much easier to pick specs out. When it's like a daytime weather setting, Vietnam's a fucking nightmare for keeping ID on targets. All you have to do is just fly low, and you know, it's impossible, you just lose you instantly. But had enough practice now with the gun, did that without even using the radar gun sight, clipped his tail and he's in the drink. And that's the last kill of the video. So thanks a lot for watching, folks. I know it's been a really long one, but yeah, hopefully it's been entertaining and informative. That's my first impressions of the T-2. Probably my favourite aircraft in the game, not gonna lie. Keep an eye out for future videos. I'll probably do another revisit of this when I've had a bit more practice with it, because I'm probably going to be flying it quite a bit to spade it out, because it's a beast. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.